jacket came. The story of it came from a real life experience with Larry David. Um, he refers back to a lot when the time he was dating Monica Yates, and he referred to the first time he met Monica's father, Richard Yates, who was a very well known writer. They met at the Algonquin Hotel, and obviously, they were he was intimidated as Yates was a successful writer. But besides just being a writer, he was also just a very intimidating man as well. And at the same time, Larry David had bought a suede jacket just very recently before that date. But it was snowing outside, so they were going to walk to a restaurant close by the Algonquin. But then it was snowing, and basically Yates was like, "You ain't walking down the street with my daughter wearing your jacket." Like basically, he had to take one for the team. I can't remember if Larry David said if I can't remember if Larry David said that he did what Jerry did and flipped the jacket inside, but basically the jacket got ruined. But that was basically the main gist of the story here is Elaine's father, Alton Bennis, who was apparently a very well-known writer, was coming to town and wanted to have dinner with Elaine, and Elaine wanted Jerry and George to come with her. Obviously, of course, with, him being a writer at first, they were nervous about meeting him because of how good of a writer he was. Also, in the beginning of this episode, Jerry was at a store trying to look for a new jacket. And of course, the salesman there was super pushy, basically saying, "Oh, this looks great." And obviously just wanting him to make sure Jerry bought something good. Jerry eventually finds the suede jacket and says, "Suede never fits me." He's like, "I love it. This is great." But of course, we never found out how much it cost, but it was an expensive jacket. The only goofy part was it had this very goofy looking inside liner. It looked like a bunch of candy cane stripes, basically. But Jerry still bought the jacket. Well, before Jerry left to go to the Algonquin with George and to meet Elaine there at 8 o'clock, Kramer came in. And Kramer basically, of course, makes Jerry, makes Jerry give in to let Kramer have his old leather jacket. And Kramer took it. But then, when George comes in, and George had just seen Les Miserables, whatever you pronounce it, and he had the Master of the House song stuck in his head, and he couldn't get it out of his head, and he sung it how many times throughout the episode. And then Kramer asked though if I think it was they asked if they could watch his car for 2 minutes. So I guess he's watching birds, and a couple of them got loose or something like that. But Jerry's like, I can't. Jerry thinking, okay, Kramer's asking me to do a favor. It's going to take 2 minutes. 2 minutes is going to turn into 2 hours, so 20 minutes or whatnot. So he says, I can't, because he already promised Elaine he would meet, her father at the Algonquin Hotel, go out to dinner with them, and George was like, same thing, got out of it. Well, I'm pretty sure at this point they probably would have rather done that than what they experienced. So they go to the hotel, and they meet Alton Bennis. And again, he was just a very intimidating man. Talking about his time in Korea and whatnot, and there's all this stuff, and it just made the both of them very uncomfortable. And Elaine, of course, was not there, and she was obviously running late, but they didn't know why at the time. Both Jerry and George had excuses to get up, and they met in the bathroom. And basically, they were just like, let's leave. And it's like, we can't do this. Elaine would kill him. She'd be furious. And George's like, we gotta tell me we gotta go. What we gotta say? And George is like, we're frightened and we gotta go. It's plain and simple there. But Jerry doesn't want to disappoint Elaine. So they're like, okay, fine. 10 more minutes. We'll wait 10 more minutes. They came out, and Alton Bennis had just received a message. Elaine said she was going to be late, be there by about 30 minutes, and it's like, great. When Mr. Bennis then goes to the bathroom, Elaine finally arrives. It's like, where have you been? And Elaine is pissed off because Kramer, after Jerry and George said they couldn't watch his car for him while he went out to capture those birds, Elaine got the call, and she was the one who of course, fell for Kramer, saying, "Can you do me a solid?" And Kramer ended up being up as a part of 20 minutes. He had to follow some guidelines of the birds, whatnot, make sure they're all there before he went out trying to find the others. But then, of course, the cops came and towed Kramer's car, which apparently Kramer owns thousands of dollars in fines and whatnot, because obviously he does ridiculous things, with parking cars in illegal areas and whatnot, all that jazz. But then I guess two of the birds got loose and they had to chase them down also. So yeah, Elaine was pissed at Kramer and she was super late. So they showed up, and as they're getting ready to leave, it was snowing. Well, first off, before this, Alton Bennis had called George Chorus Boy because he kept singing that Master of the House song that he couldn't get out of his head. And of course, when it was snowing, Jerry's like, "Oh crap, Sway gets ruined in snow." So then George says to turn it inside out. So Jerry, despite the fact that it had that candy cane looking colored lining in it, flips it inside out. But Alton Bennis didn't approve, and he was just like, "You ain't walking down the street with my daughter wearing that." And George was like, "It's only a couple blocks. It's going to be okay." Unfortunately, it was not, because he switched it back the right way. The jacket got ruined. And of course, Kramer came in, same time Elaine came in, and it was like they're both having two separate conversations with Jerry. Kramer was trying to convince Jerry to let him take the suede jacket, and basically just it was ruined, and Jerry's wearing some, probably some old high school jacket or something like that. And then Elaine was saying something about how apparently Alton Bennis liked Jerry, but he thought he wasn't a big fan of George. And then, of course, when Elaine realized the jacket was ruined, she was, "Oh, why didn't you just turn it inside out?" Instead of saying, "Your dad didn't let me," he was just like, "I should have thought of it." And then the last scene before they show the closing stand-up with Jerry was of Alton Bennis in a car driving back to Maryland. And an intimidating guy, even though he was annoyed as hell by George singing Master of the House, he starts singing Master of the House himself with the most just typical intimidating look on his face. And that's how the show ended. The big fun fact though about this was they originally wanted to make Lawrence Tierney, who played Alton Bennis, a recurring character. He did a great job with the part and everything. However, the guy scared the crap out of the audience, or out of the rest of the cast, because in general, Lawrence Tierney was a very, intimidating man. Talented actor, but very intimidating man. There's some story where he had tried to steal one of the butcher knives from the set. And with how intimidating he was, everyone was kind of scared. "Oh my gosh, he has a knife." But Jerry, though, basically tries to get him to give the knife back. He's like, "Hey, Lawrence, we do that knife." And I guess as the joke, Tierney pulls out the knife and he starts waving it around, imitating the scene from Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. But after that, they were like, "Yeah, not gonna happen." So, supposed to be a recurring character, but because of that, they cut it. And we never saw Lawrence Tierney again. And apparently, Tom Sharon said anytime him and Larry David weren't getting along or something, he would say, "You better do it right or else I'm going to call Lawrence Tierney again." So yeah, solid episode. Liked it a little bit better than, of course, the baby shower. This may have been, like I said, I've been made aware that not all these episodes were written in order. So this may have been, I don't know, not quite as, as hardcore to the whole, well, you can still say it kind of was, sticking to that structure of having all stories collide, because, truth is they all did. The jacket, Elaine being late because of Kramer's birds and whatnot, and, it's all that. And the jacket gets ruined because Alton Bennis refused to have Jerry walk down the streets with his daughter with the jacket flipped inside out. So, rest in peace to the suede jacket. And that does it, guys. That's my review of The Jacket in Seinfeld. The next episode is an episode that I feel was the make it or break it episode for Seinfeld. Because gone horribly wrong, this episode could have been the end of the series. But since it didn't, it was pretty much after this episode was filmed and produced, it was pretty obvious at the point after this that, okay, the show's going to be fine. The show's going to be taken off, and probably led to that 22 episode season 3 that they got. We'll talk about that next time, though. Guys, what are your thoughts on the jacket? What are your thoughts on Lawrence Tierney as well? I want to hear that. Did you think he was a good, intimidating man? Leave thoughts down in the comments section below. Slap a like on the video. Subscribe for more content to my channel. And follow me on Twitter at TheManAirBoy93. Till then, guys, I'll see you all later. I'm checking out. Have a great rest of your night. And peace out, everybody.